Hey everybody, it is Friday, May 10th, 2019, and this is the Pro and Con Show. And I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show wherever you are. Um, as normal in the show, we do this every day for about 15 or 20 minutes, and we talk about the news and trying to separate opinion from the facts, right? And try to understand and help each other understand how to get the bias out of the news, so we can look at the news um, without that bias, obviously, and make our own decisions. Well-informed decisions. And so normally go through. There's 5 different websites ranging from conservative to more liberal, and I just wanted to hit on a couple of things here. Of course, the main news is still, and it's going to be going on for a while, so I will mention it, but only briefly. So again, the big fight between the Democrats in the House of Representatives and President Trump and a handful of his Republican supporters in the Senate. And they're at loggerheads over what kind of information the president has to provide to Congress. So again, the tax filings is one thing, and then the background information on the Mueller report is the other one. So rather than spend any time on that, I wanted to just jump to Breitbart. Because this is a good illustration, right? We're trying to separate opinion or analysis or commentary from fact. And the fact, which I call real news, is who, what, where, and when. Okay? And so right on the very front page of Breitbart, huge headlines, is this fellow, Prager. And I have not read this article. I don't know who this fellow is. And I personally don't really care because, I care, but not very much. And the reason is that these headlines are all they're just opinion. So he says, the left has substituted itself for God. Okay. Now, if that was a news story, then you'd go into that article and you would say, oh, here's a group. They identify themselves as the left. They number whatever. They're located somewhere. And they are, here's the leader of the left saying, we are substituting ourselves for God. But that's not happening. This fellow is looking at the people that disagree with him in the political landscape and labeling them with opinions of his. And then, so the next one says, anti-religious crowd wants to control your life. Again, if it were news, then there would be a group called the anti-religious crowd. They would wear t-shirts or have insignia or a sign-up sheet or whatever, and then again the group members and leaders of that group would be walking around saying, I want to control your life. I want to control your life. Not happening. It's this fellow is just fomenting this kind of opinionated thing, and it's on Breitbart. And then the last thing it says is impossible to build a great society on secular foundation. Again, opinion, opinion, opinion. Now, that last one, I will actually go into this article just very quickly and see if there's anything in there, but I almost guarantee there isn't. But if he really wanted to support that thing, then he would say, okay, I have gone back, I've worked with history professors at the following universities, and we've gone back and we've looked at all these different societies, and those that were secular versus religious, and we, have some opinions, some kind of barometer on how great those societies were. And the interesting thing for me is that, just in our modern societies here, it says impossible to build a great society on a secular foundation, but fundamentally, actually, the United States government and the U.S. Constitution is mostly a secular foundation. If you went through schooling and grade school and whatnot, you heard about this separation of religion and government. And there's very, very little religion in the U.S. government codes and stuff like that. There's a couple of things like the Pledge of Allegiance, which is not, by the way, part of law or anything. It's just this pledge that was traditional. And back in the 50s, I think they added, I want to say it was in the 50s, they added under God in there into the Pledge of Allegiance. But the guys who wrote the Constitution actually were pretty adamant that they wanted to keep religion out of government. And just to make sure that you understand, we all understand an example of where religion and government are together is, for example, a country like Iran, where the leaders of the major religion are also the leaders in the government, and the laws and stuff like that. They're very parallel. Everything is parallel. This religion and government are together, kind of this unified governing thing. Well, here in this country, if you're Jewish, you're free to be Jewish. And if you're Episcopalian, you're free to be Episcopalian, and Buddhist, and, on and on and on. Our government says that you have religious freedom. You can seek and worship God. You can approach God in any way that you want, as opposed to the non-secular or religious foundation governments like the one in Iran, for example, where it's a very specific vision or religion that's governing that country. So this thing, again, please, please, please embrace the truth, right? Who, what, where, and when, and look for these things where people are being presented, or their opinions are being presented as news. And you may fully feel, based on where you've come from and how you've been raised and whatnot, that maybe getting religion more into government would be a good thing. But I caution you there, because I just spoke about, Catholics or Jewish people or Episcopalians or Methodists or on and on and on, right? So if you start saying, well, we're going to want religion more and more into our government, well, then which one? Who are you going to give influence in our government? And are they going to start, just like in Iran, are they going to start nullifying the freedoms of other religions? And I think that that's a very dangerous thing to be considering. So again, just the factual stuff of how our government is, and how religions function, and and also I want to say that certainly religion can have can help support kind of a moral fabric, if you will, and that's generally a good thing. A moral fabric, a moral standard kind of thing, but that don't mix up religion with morality, because they can be very different. And some religions okay, are not mainstream religions, and people who are in mainstream religions would look at some of their um, beliefs and stuff and say, well, they're not moral, they're immoral. Okay, so now let's go through how much time. So we've gone about 10 minutes here. Let's hit on one other thing. So actually, let's not do that. Well, yeah, let's do that. So on NPR, which is kind of a non-biased, mostly non-biased thing here. Well, they did have, I don't see it. Oh, they changed, these guys are changing their websites all the time here. Let's see. Huh. Oh, okay. So I'm going all the way over to the Huffington Post, and so on the front page of the Huffington Post, there's a picture of Joe Biden, and the headline is, he's eyeing what the headline is, the mushy middle on climate change. So again, the Huffington Post, kind of left-leaning and very strong advocates generally, if you read their stuff, of believing in climate change and wanting us to do something about it. And so the subheadline here says, Biden looks to revive Obama climate plans. Scientists say it's not good enough. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to and I, again, periodically we'll talk about these things over the, many, many days here, 15, 20 minutes a day, is the thing about the truth is that you can perceive it in a different way depending on where you were raised and so on. So this is a coin, and most of you can see it's a quarter, and I'm trying to make sure it's showing up on two videos. I actually have Facebook Live on one here and my phone videotaping at the same time so that I can place this same video on YouTube here in a few hours. Anyway, so this is a quarter, and there's the likeness of George Washington on the front. And that's what you're seeing in this video. And so depending on where you were raised and where you were born and, your family and your friends and the schooling that you get and so on and so forth, and now all of your life experiences, all accumulating into the moment right now. And wherever you are, you're watching this video and you see this coin and you say, I see a likeness of George Washington. And so your perception is that this coin has a likeness of George Washington on it. And so then, so I'm your neighbor across the street, and I look at this. I was born where I was born. I was raised how I was raised, with family and schooling and all these other things. And I look at this same coin and I see an image of an eagle on it. And you look at the coin and you're like, you see an eagle? Are you crazy? And I look at the coin and I say, you see an image of George Washington? Not in the world that I live in, right? And, I could carry this on for a few more moments to emphasize the point, but the point is that the coin is the truth. And the truth, if I flip this over, you can see that sure enough, there is an eagle on the other side, and there's actually, an edge to the coin. So the truth, the amalgam of the truth, the whole truth of the coin is both sides and the edge. All of it is the whole truth of the coin. And depending on where you are, where you've come from, you can be ignorant, which is not a bad thing, Everyone's ignorant of everything. No one is all knowing, all right? So you can be ignorant of the whole truth. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this series, is to encourage everybody out there. Everybody, please, I beg you, open your minds and your hearts to the concept that you are not all knowing, and that you are willing to look at things, at least understand or learn something new about a particular topic, whether it's climate change or abortion or tax, some kind of budget thing or whatever it is. All the different issues that face us as a nation, as a people, as a species on the planet. You're not all knowing, so open your hearts and your minds to at least listening to the other perspectives, so that you get a bigger picture on this. And so I want to touch on that climate change thing. So I mentioned in a couple of shows ago that there's it's solidly 7 and rapidly approaching 8 times the number of people on this planet as there was 200 years ago. And just to bring that into focus, just imagine, like, I live here with my small family. I have 3 people in the family here in the house. And just imagine if instead of having 3, I had 21 or 28 people in my house. Well, I'm telling you, the environment in my house is going to change dramatically when I've got 21 or 28 people living in my house, as opposed to, 21 or 24, didn't do the math right, 21 or 24 people living in my house versus just the 3 of us. Okay. And the other thing that I mentioned is that, the CO2 level, carbon dioxide, which is a relatively inert gas, and it's really not bad for us. Okay. It's not like a poisonous gas. But it does, when it accumulates, it does trap energy. This is a scientific fact. There's no one arguing against, well, not no one, but no one with any knowledge of the environment and the sun interaction with our atmosphere and stuff like that would argue that it doesn't retain heat. It's one of the gases that helps the sunlight basically, coming in and being retained, the energy from the sun. And so it's twice the level that it was a couple of 100 years ago. And so 7 or 8 times the number of people, and now the carbon dioxide level is twice what it used to be. Okay. Now, one of the things that, I wanted, again, all sides of the coin here, I want to just propose something here. One of the main reasons why some people are fighting this climate change thing and whatnot is because there's a big push to convert to electric, which is basically going to eliminate a huge amount of infrastructure that is pre-existing. Well, there's a couple problems. So one is people, it's huge. I mean, this is a couple 100 years worth of infrastructure that's been built up. It's, I don't know how many billions, tens, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of infrastructure around fossil fuels. But the other part of it is there's no way the growth of the CO2 in the atmosphere is so rapid, and there's so much infrastructure. There's no way that we could convert all the way over to electric and solar and whatever. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't possibly do it fast enough. So the proposal is there are relatively new technologies, but they seem to be valid technologies that you can actually extract CO2 out of the air and convert it back into fuel. Okay? And that's something that we can get the guys, we could build these conversion plants or CO2 recycling plants. Yes, we'd spend some money. It would be an infrastructure cost, just like we spend money on roads and signs and so on, and bridges and all that kind of stuff. We could build these plants, and we could build them. The nice thing about them is, unlike roads, which have to go from A to B, and they're, they have to service where the people are, these things can be put pretty much wherever we want them. So we could put a concentration of them, for example, up in Michigan near Detroit, where, the employment rate and employment generally has been suppressed for quite a while because of the automotive industry basically moving out of North American operations in a fairly big way. And the people in West Virginia who have really been horribly served by the coal industry, and okay, that's my opinion, but it would seem to be more fact than opinion. These poor people with their black lung disease have been going down into coal mines for decades and suffering all kinds of maladies from breathing the coal dust and working down in the mines, and the collapses and people dying, and the coming across gas and stuff that asphyxiates them, and on and on and on. Hey, we could put, this is again areas where employment and the economy has been suppressed for quite some time. Give them really good jobs building these and running these little conversion plants or recycling plants, and wow, I mean, it would be, hey guys, come breathe the fresh air, come be in the sunshine and do something that's really important to the planet. They could also work I've seen in the past shows that talk about West Virginia and how the area around through there, and there's many other places too, but because of the mining, there's been problems with toxins in the water, and the destruction of the general environment and so on. All of that could be focus points for these federally funded programs to reestablish, or not reestablish, but reestablish the environment, but also get the carbon dioxide out of the air quickly, even with the fossil fuel program still running. So we could have maybe a conversion into electric at a slower rate, at kind of a normal rate, or one that could be easily sustained, but fairly quickly concentrate on building these plants that would pull the carbon dioxide out of the air and convert it into fuel. And so in that way we could recycle and keep our economy going strong, and fix localized areas where employment was bad, was poor. So anyway, that's a more holistic approach, and that's one of the other things that I will be talking about day after day as the weeks and months go by, is to try to step back and find a solution that wins for everyone. It's a win for everybody. That's the kind of solution that everybody can get behind. Well, I'm actually running a little bit over today. Normally try to quit at about 20 minutes. I see we're up to almost 24 minutes. But in any case, I hope you've enjoyed the show. And again, please come watch the show every day if you can, and send in comments, especially if the show is live. Let me know where you are around the world. It'd be great to know that. And until tomorrow, this is the end of the Pro and Con Show with Michael James Ott. I hope each and every one of you has a great evening.